We are waiting for you. We can start once you're here. We are waiting for some deputations. We have already started the meeting. We just had a short break. We will start once the deputations are in. We have 29 deputations in the second round. For the second session, we just finished session 1. A lot of deputations are not here yet. We should have more in this session. Does anyone know if we have deputations waiting in other rooms? They're coming up now. So we'll give them a few minutes.
Okay.
Welcome, deputations and the administration. Let's start session 2 on the low-income working family allowance. Channel 0 of the earset is the floor. Channel 1 is Cantonese and Channel 2 is English. You can take turns and give your views. You have about 3 minutes each, and your accounts will not be protected by Cap 382 of the LegCo Powers and Privileges Ordinance. So you have to be responsible for what you've said. And we will give some time for the Secretary to respond later on. We expect 29 deputations, and now we have 13 deputations. And so you may now speak in order. Mr. Sitkachun, Shangshui Low Income Concern Group, he's not here. I'll just refer to my list. The Hong Kong Society for Rehab Center on Research and Advocacy, Ms. Anke Hong. We are very concerned with PWDs. In the policy address, the administration introduced this idea of LIFA, and we welcome the idea. And we are looking at how family members can benefit. In January this year, we interviewed 680 patients and their family members, and around 600 of them, apart from the questionnaires, apart from filling out the questionnaires, they also told us about their family incomes. From the research, 61% of PWDs and patients are under the poverty line as defined by the government. Around 60% were households under poverty, and around 60% satisfy the definition of households in poverty. Around 87% of patients and their family members are eligible for LIFA. They satisfy the basic requirements. Some patients are already on CSSA. Around 4% are not eligible for LIFA. There is a working hours requirement under LIFA. For families who apply for full allowance, they must have at least one family member who work over 208 hours a month, and we are very concerned about this. Chronic patients they might not have very good stamina, and the family members might not be able to secure carer's allowance. And without enough allowance, it's very difficult for them to work 208 hours a day, especially when they are chronic patients. And with this requirement, it means that the workers have to work at least 48 hours a week and 6 days a week. And this requirement is rather harsh for most families. Under LIFA, the government is trying to encourage employment, and a lot of families are not eligible for this scheme. We hope PWDs with working abilities, can we do something in terms of policy? Can we adjust the working hours so that these people can be self-reliant again? Can we allow these people to work in the society? And so to sum up, we have 2 points. First, to allow low-income PWDs and patients to apply for the scheme on an individual basis. And second, can we lower the working hours requirement for single-member families? And this way, we can alleviate the pressure on carers and PWDs. Mr. C.M. Lam from the Labour Party. We have been angling for LIFA for many years, and we are happy to see it coming to fruition now. However, the scheme is incomplete in nature. As mentioned by many members, the 208-hour requirement is unreasonable. So is the government telling workers to not go home? The requirement is equivalent to 52 hours a week, and we are advocating standard working hours of 44 hours. And this means that workers have to work beyond the regular hours in order to secure this high allowance. This is, we are talking about poverty alleviation, and this is not a work incentive program. We should have a fixed allowance of, say, $1,000, and we should not have an incentive thinking. This is a family-based scheme. We should retain individual transport subsidy. And all along, we have been saying that under LIFA, we have to deduct the cost of housing in order to really help the applicants. If you are living in PRH units, the pressure might be lower. But if you are living in a private housing unit, the workers might have a lot less disposable income. Even for applicants on the same income, their quality of living depends on what kind of residential unit they're living in. The difference might be very big. And if the requirement is the same, then it might be unfair to some people. And we should take reference from the upper income limit for PRH. In some cases, the MMHI of some families, of families with more family members, might actually be lower. In some cases, the income of 3-person families might be lower than those of 2-person families. And the MMHI of 4 or 5-person families are both $30,000. And these are some absurd cases caused by the scheme. We hope the administration can listen to our views. I'll let 2 of the deputations speak first because they have to leave early. Mr. Tam. From New Territories Evangelical Ambassador. The pledges from the public has led to the CEE introducing LIFA. How do you define low-income family? Carrie Lam talked about the situation, but it's very contradictory. The government will not provide low-income subsidy.
Government subsidies will not be counted as income, but that was what she said. Yet, in OA, LA, and also WITS, they will be counted in the LIFA. WITS and OA, LA are cash subsidy of the administration. And if they are counted in the LIFA application, then other allowances such as textbook allowance should also be counted. So there is no consistency in government policy. As for the efficiency unit, under Mrs. Lam, we are concerned that they don't have real-life experience. They just draw up policy behind closed doors. Their proposal is not able to deal with low-income families' difficulties. Now, one threshold for eligibility is 208 hours, and the person will get $1,000 in terms of subsidy, but it goes against the principle of family harmony. Parents will have to work long hours, and they have no time for their children. The administration is encouraging working for longer hours to get a higher subsidy. That go against the welfare of workers. Now, in a month when there are several public holidays, the workers will not meet the 208 hours threshold. We oppose the 208 hours threshold. The scheme favor those who have children, but over 41,000 PWDs are working, and they are not given a fair deal. And there are also have a very big medical bill, and they want to work. They don't want to receive CSSA. They want to live with dignity. Now, if they should be given help, they should be given special help under the LIFA, just like those who have children. The administration should consider this. Next, Mr. Cole. Yes. I represent those who are mildly mentally handicapped. Many deputations and political groups have criticized the threshold of 208 hours for the higher basic allowance. This is a tall order. As for the PWDs, they really can't meet the threshold of 208 hours. A mildly handicapped person who can work will not meet the 208 hours requirement. And Mr. Chang, last time the PWDs met with you, and you should know our view. And we are not able to see that your policy can help us. If I'm working and also my mother is working, I am disabled, and our salaries cannot keep pace with inflation, and we will not be eligible. I hope Mr. Chung can address our concern. I think you should provide some subsidy to the disabled who are working. Ms. Ching. Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Chang, members of the Council, those who are concerned about the welfare of the low-income families, I hope that families can be cared for. I come from a middle-income family, but we are in fact going down the social ladder. Now look at these two pieces of paper. Well, I hope I can help in solving housing problem. The first question is whether people are building homes. I enrolled in a course of the CITA, and I waited for a year, and I have not been enrolled. I have to wait for 3 other months. Why can't they get better teachers to help us? Originally, I worked in the field of communication. I didn't know anything about construction. While I am waiting, I'm still looking for jobs. I have a degree. I hope that Mr. Chung can set up more focus groups so that we can conduct studies. It's important to conduct research. And local research doesn't need overseas experts. Overseas experts can give advice, but the budget is limited. Local people should be involved in the studies. The service targets here are the best to be involved in the studies. And they may have some conflict of interest, but there can be other participants to balance their views. How is your point related to LIFA? Working poor is indeed very bad. In the past 8 years, I've been writing proposals. I have no income. We work in the creative industry. We write things up. They say that they have to pick and choose, and if you are not chosen, you have no income. I'd like to remind the deputations that we are discussing the low-income family allowance. The administration is going to launch the scheme. Before the administration finalizes the details, we ask you to give your views, and I hope you will speak according to the topic. If you digress, I will stop you from giving your views. We have other occasions to speak on the matter. Well, if people have income, they don't need any subsidy. And it's not too bad to be a working poor, but if you work and you have no income, then you are in a worse situation. Let's don't focus on low-income families. I have to stop you because you're not speaking to the question. We'll give you another opportunity to speak on other occasions. My apologies. We need to speak to the question. Otherwise, people will speak on other topics, then it goes against the agenda item we have set. Now, how do you set the standard for low income? Well, you can go to the internet and also our website to check what is the level. I think you have used up your time. Next, Mr. Wong Kwai Sang, a low-income concern group. Well, I have to remain silent for my colleague who worked for the Jockey Club, who killed himself or herself. How is it related to your to this topic, Mr. Yang? No, my name is Fong. We are paid on hourly rate. Now they say monthly workers 180 hours, and the threshold they propose is 208 hours, but the Jockey Club will not give us that many working hours. Starting from August last year, if you go to work, I worked. I took. I also took up the extra time of other workers. We now we switched from 180 hours to just 100 hours. How can we make a living? I'll come to you to get money. And that's what the Jockey Club is doing. As for occupational safety and health, they keep asking us to stop working. They refuse us working for the 7th day. We don't even have 18 hours per week and for 4 weeks. Now, you are not speaking to the question. If you are not happy with the system of your company, you can go to our complaint section. Mr. Fong, this is I'm on the point. We cannot work on Saturday. According to our contract, we can only work on Sundays and Saturdays. And when we become weak, they say we have to switch to 100 hours instead of 180. It's not that we don't want to listen to you, but this is not in line with the agenda today. There are many part-time workers in the Jockey Club. Last year, we started to apply WITS. We are not discussing WITS today. They don't allow us to work for the 7th day. Not just 418. We have to go on the 7th day. We have less and less income. And if we receive less than 7,100, well, I have to stop you. Sorry. We are consulting on LIFA. If you say anything, if everybody is speaking on other things, then it's meaningless. That's what's happening in the company. Then you go to make a complaint to the complaint section, or you can complain to the relevant authority. Well, I see Mr. Chang here. This is not the place for you to make a complaint. I have to stop you. Sorry. Next. Ms. Jenny Chan, Love China Hong Kong Alliance of Youth Cultural Societies. Our alliance support the setting up Innovation and Technology Bureau by CY. Sorry, Ms. Chan, have you heard me? I will stop you. There are examples. Don't speak on politics. I'm not speaking on politics. It's all about Hong Kong's economy. We are speaking on LIFA, Low-Income Family Allowance, the source of poverty. Now, once again, if you do not speak on low-income family allowance, I will stop you. Well, let me then go back from the end. You asked me to speak on low income. Ms. Jenny Chan, listen to me. The topic is low income family allowance. Yes, I am on it. Universal retirement protection doesn't fit Hong Kong. Today is not on universal retirement protection. And there will be abuses. If you are not on this topic, I will stop you. I will stop you if you remain like this, if you insist. The government should allow flexibility in the labor market so that women can work, and more support should be given to children, and reduce the pressure on women. There should be a means test. If there is no means test for LIFA, then there will be abuses. You need to help those who really have the need. Low-income allowance is to help the poor. I support that. So the reason for poverty is that there is no education. Reason for poverty is that one doesn't have a home, and if people are given a home, then poverty will be reduced. They don't need to go for low-income assistance. As for traveling expenses are very transport fares are very high if one lives far away from work. Then the government should help them and give some subsidy to them so that they can be subsidized in terms of their traveling expenses. If their job cannot pay for traveling expenses. Now you have overrun. I know that. You have digressed. I cannot allow you to speak. Next is Mr. Ng.
其實我哋嚟自葵涌區啦。咁其實
We come from Kwai Ching. The policy address of 2014 by CY Leung proposed to introduce the LIFA. Like other people, we think that that's a good thing. But in terms of the details, there are matters that have to be improved because the present proposal cannot fit the needs of the people. Concerning the 208-hour threshold, there are two thresholds, one for 4 hours and 208 hours. 208 hours is hard to reach. Say those living in Kwai Chung, many of them live in SDUs. They have to care for their children. They can work for 208 hours, but they will have to give up the time with their children, give up the time to care for their children. And that will affect their family life. That will affect their children. To achieve 208, the 208-hour standard, some women may not be able to reach that because they have to care for their children. The government encourages parents, both parents, to care for their children. If there is not enough care, children may have problems of growing up. They may be loitering in the streets because no one cares for them. Now we have minimum wage. That's a good thing, $30 per hour. If one works 280 hours, some even work 260 hours per month. That will exceed, and also the hourly rate is more than 30 hours. They will not be able to reach. They will not be able to meet that threshold. But it doesn't mean that he is not poor. The present proposal requires people to work long hours, and when they go home, they will be flat out and they have no time to care for their family. Is that what the administration wants? And then the administration may say 148 hours then. The difference is just $400. But $400 are a big sum for the low-income family. They may spend $20 or $30 per meal for a family of 4. So $400 means a lot. If they don't get the higher basic allowance, they will have $400 short, and their livelihood will also be affected. If there are more than one working member, then the working hours should be calculated on a family basis. Next, Ms. Fong of Kwai Chung Concern Group for SDUs. If you work 208 hours per month, then you really have no time to care for your children. And if you cannot meet the 208 hours threshold, then you really cannot get the higher basic allowance. So we are caught in a Catch-22 situation. That's what I want to say. Thank you. Mr. Ao of Kwai Chung, also a concern group for SDUs. Ms. Ao, the threshold of 208 hours means 72 hours per week, and if you have minimum wage of 30 hours, then $30 per hour, then it will exceed your income threshold. Say if I'm a security guard or I work in a restaurant, 30 hours, $30 per hour, 72 hours per week, that will exceed the minimum wage requirement.
You're finished? Next, Ms. Ho Lai Chan, from representing the Alliance of those living in Kwai Chung subdivided flats. The 208-hour threshold for many households, working households, is too high. If a single person in the household works, if the husband works and the mother looks after 2 or more of her children, if the working hour threshold is too high, then they would have to work longer hours. The result of which they wouldn't have time to spend with the family members. I understand that some Kai Fongs work for 11 hours a day before they can make ends meet for a 4-person household. For the young children, because the parents work long hours, so the parents don't have very much time to spend together with the children. When they go to work, the children not yet up out of bed, hasn't woken up, and when they return from school, the parents the father is already at work. Since the father works long hours, so when the children return from school, they will take a nap. And the children very often ask why they can't even see the father every day. Same for the wife. The husband works very hard, and the wife would need to look after the children, and she would complain that the husband is returning home so late. Should I wait up for you or not? If not, I can't even say a few words to you. And I work so hard looking after the kids every day, and there seems to be no communication between the two of us. When the husbands are forced to work long hours before they can look after the family. And I'd like to suggest to the administration, for the benefit of our families and our society, you should lower the number of working hours required so that these household members don't have to work such long hours, and that they have time to spend with the family. The leave policy does not cover the singleton households. In Kwai Chung, I understand that there are many singleton households. And These people earn low incomes. They fall under the category of low-income households. Since they fall under the category of low-income households, they're not eligible for LIFA, and they are living in subdivided units. They have to pay expensive rent. So how are they going to make ends meet? If they don't get such an allowance and they have to work so hard, they can't even make enough to pay their own rents, and the standard of living is also so poor. So does it mean that the government doesn't need to take care of these people? Thank you. Next, Ms. Ma Chui Fan, again representing those living in subdivided flats in Kwai Chung. I also like to talk about 208 hours threshold. I also come from a single parent household. I have 3 children. Take last month, for example. I worked for 109 hours, and the whole family was in chaos. I didn't have time to look after my children. So 208 hours, I think, is too harsh. I hope the government will simply lower the threshold. Ms. Lai Chi San, concerned group for the working women at risk of cancer. I think the 208-hour threshold is too harsh. I am sick if I work for 180 hours. It's already too strenuous for me. After I finished work on Saturday, I fainted, in fact. And when I woke up, my mother asked why I fainted in the sitting room. I said I didn't know. And then I have to work again. So have you set the threshold at too high a level? For disabled persons, soon you set a lower threshold for them. And for those who are sick, the money they make will have to be spent to pay on their medical bills. And they cannot make ends meet. They can't even afford the medical expenses, and they're not eligible for the allowance. So what should they do? Should they follow the person who jumped to his death last month? Are you saying that in order to qualify for the allowance, I think you simply are not eligible? You may as well kill yourself. Next, Mr. Augustine Yu, Catholic Diocese of Hong Kong, Diocesan Pastoral Center for Workers. Thank you. I'd like to reiterate again that, well, my center is located in Shui. I know many people who are living alone, and very often we discuss issues confronting the low-income households. They were very shocked to learn that a single household, a singleton household, will not be eligible to the allowance. Some deputations have touched on this point, which might be slightly irrelevant. Mr. Matthew Cheung and the administration understand that the LIFA has been entrusted with the efficiency unit. Why is it that we don't have someone from the efficiency unit present to explain to us the rationale behind this scheme? I understand that this has been entrusted with that department. As another deputation have pointed out, as in the case of the transportation allowance, when the Labour Department started the scheme, they were simply, at a loss. Because previously it was entrusted with voluntary agencies. Subsequently, the Bureau spent $4.3 billion and set up a special department to handle the allowance. Now that it's been operating for a few years, and it's been running smoothly, and the CEO has been transferred, and they're starting from fresh again. So does it mean that the efficiency unit has to again spend tens of millions of dollars and do the exercise all over again? We have some employment center. Such centers have experience in providing employment assistance, but I don't think the sufficient unit would know how to do this. So how can they help the working poor? Some people suggest that you should, entrust this with the frontline voluntary organizations. Thirdly, for the transportation allowance scheme, you have to set the threshold at 36 and 72 hours. Over the last few months, I have received complaints that the applicants are saying that it's too complicated for them to apply for the transportation allowance. We've handled one case recently, someone who applied to the Community Caring Fund, and if they've put in the wrong word in the form, they have to sign and so on. It's simply too onerous. Every time they make any correction, they have to sign. Put down the signature again, and many of these low-income households decided eventually that they will simply not bother. So my concern is, please do not repeat the error of the transportation allowance scheme, because you are deterring people from applying for the fund, from the fund. Next, Ms. Vinnie Kwok. The purpose of LEFA is to relieve the households suffering from poverty. I think those with the low income should get more allowance. If you pay out allowance on the basis of the number of hours they work, you're ignoring the casual workers, and households with need are not assisted, and you're not able to tackle the problem of the working poor. The 208-hour threshold, therefore, would mean that you have to work for 26 days a day, 8 hours a day, and if they happen to be sick in a month, or if there's a holiday such as May 1st, they will not be eligible. So have you set the threshold at too high a level? Also, you have to consider whether or not the employer will allow us to work for 208 hours a month. In the Northern District, it's very difficult to find employment. I travel to Admiralty to work. Although I live in the North District, I spend 4 hours traveling to and from work every day. So would you consider that we could be sick sometimes, and we only have 28 working days? How can we be eligible to your allowance? I'm a single mother. My kid is still at school. I hope that I'm able to look after my son. I hope that when he finishes with his studies, he can contribute to society. So I hope you can consider, the needs of single-parent households like ours. And when I work, I am paid the $600 of transportation allowance. But for the LEFA scheme, why do you require us to work for 208 hours before we can collect a $1,000 allowance? The threshold is simply too high. We have over 72 hours, I can collect $600. How have you come up with the threshold of 208 hours? Are you saying that that we can't be sick and nothing wrong would happen? You may as well require us to work for 31 days in a month. So the workers strongly demand that you should align the threshold with that of the transportation allowance. That is, we should be entitled to a $1,000 allowance if we work for 72 hours, 36 hours, then we should be entitled to $600 of allowance. Ms. Chow King from Smart and Beauty House. Well, it's been 16 years since the handover. The government's protection for the grassroots households are not enough to help them make ends meet. Before the handover, for example, the monthly rental was only $1,000 odd, but now, even for subdivided flats, it's more than $4,000 per unit, and this makes up almost 1/3 of the wages for a typical worker or employee. Previously, they could earn $7,000. Now they may be earning $10,000, but many of them have to look after the family, including the take care of the children's educational needs and the senior members of the family. So for a household of 4, for example, they have to pay, for example, higher and higher electricity bills and fuel charges and transportation expenses. For the average employees, they simply cannot cope. Furthermore, inflation is really rampant. the minimum wage now is only $30 per hour, and it's not able to help us catch up with inflation. So these households cannot maintain the basic standard of living. So they really don't know what to do. They have to support the parents and the children. The typical household expenditure is already beyond their means, and the government is not listening to the public, and is adding to the burden instead. And the government has also laid down all kinds of obstacles, making it very difficult for them to apply for these allowances. Other than the application, they have to go through a means test. If I have the assets, would you think that I would still apply for the allowance? After the worker has put in the application, they only will be able to entitle to a very small allowance, which cannot really help them much, and it is not very effective in helping tackle poverty. And for the transportation allowance, the government would still require the applicant to go through a means test. So how, during the means test, the officials will scold the workers. So for transportation, fees are very expensive, but the government is setting all kinds of obstacles to deter the workers from applying for the allowance. The government is also ignoring the condition of the casual workers and workers who are not able to verify their incomes. For the disabled and the handicap, you're not really taking care of the needs because they need extra resources to procure the equipment and so on. I hope the government will lighten the burden and help tackle the problem of intergeneration poverty. Next, Mr. Chen Chi-kin. The government is now coming up with the threshold of 208 to 144 hours. 208 hours would mean that one will have to work for 48 hours per week. 144 would mean you need to work 33 hours per week. If someone works more than 208 hours, the government will give them an allowance of $1,000. If someone has worked for more than 144 but less than 208 hours, they will be entitled to $600 of allowance. This is based on the information announced in the policy address. In Shui, we have been in touch with worker associations representing casual workers and so on, and we've learned that very often, after, let's say, for people who give away free newspapers in the morning, they will only work for 2 hours. After that, they will need to go to another stop or another company to work. They do not. So they will need to take a ride on public transport to go to another job. So if they have to work for 8 hours in a day, they may need to work for 3 jobs before they can satisfy the requirement for them to work for 8 or 9 hours. If you add on top of that the traveling time, it will take up half a day's time. A person typically should need to sleep for 6 to 8 hours per day. So how much time would they have left to take care of the children? This morning, I met with some of these households, and these people told me that they work for a job because they want to take better care of the children. If leaver can help them, of course, it's a good thing. But if they know, when I told them this morning that the threshold is so high, they all said, if I have to work such long hours, how would I have time to see my children? Many workers nowadays are exhausted after they finish with work. They are so tired, and we have some housewives present here who've told us that day in and day out, they work very hard for the families. if they have to work for 208 hours before they can receive the $1,000 allowance, it's like it would mean that they have to work very long hours, they have to give up a lot of things. And 208 hours is not, you may say that, well, the harder you work, the more you'll be rewarded. But have you considered that if I work so hard, by the time I go home, all my family members would have been asleep. I don't even have the chance to talk to them. So how can I have quality family life? Next, Mr. Minhas Rashad from the Kwai Chung Ethnic Minority Concern Group. I'd like to talk about how the ethnic minorities will or will not benefit. Many ethnic minorities are casual workers who are paid on a daily basis. They will tend to work on construction sites. They will follow the contractor. When works need to be done, they will have employment. So I hope you will bear in mind that the ethnic minorities, and it's not just the ethnic minorities, people who who belong to the low-income families, they are facing the same difficulty. I hope, therefore, that you will lower the working hour threshold. If the workers work for low incomes, they can apply for CSSA. And if they apply for CSSA, they will be stigmatized. So when you formulate a policy, you will not stigmatize a particular ethnic group or any particular sector. So I hope you could be more lenient so that you can encourage them to proactively look for work so that they can, move up. They don't have to rely on CSSA. Otherwise, if the income is so low and if they think that they cannot improve on the living standard, they will simply apply for CSSA allowance. Secondly, when the ethnic minorities arrive in Hong Kong and when they apply for the whole family to join them in Hong Kong, they may not have stayed in Hong Kong for 7 years. While there is some flexibility, but the frontline workers may not know that if their kids' passports and visas, according to visas, they have not stayed long enough, they will not be entitled to the allowance. And when you calculate the household income, you will not take them into consideration, and hence there will be a gap. I've lived in Hong Kong for more than 30 years. I have discovered that our economy is developing very, very fast. Very often, those honorable members and officials sitting in this chamber used to live in poorer background when they were young. People now are missing the British colonial administration because their policies were fair, and low-income people who were willing to work hard will have the opportunity for upward mobility. But if you look at Hong Kong now, the poverty gap is becoming wider and wider. Well, I'm not saying that people of Hong Kong are poorer. You have some people who are very rich and others are becoming very, very poor. So when you consider your policy proposals, please bear this in mind. Don't further widen the poverty gap. Because many people, since the handover, it is really sad that people are missing the colonial days.
Ms. Ng Ling from Hong Kong Women Workers Association. As some of the deputations mentioned, a lot of grassroots or women's associations are happy towards the launch of LIFA. However, having read the details, we are disappointed because there is no perspective, there is no women's perspective in their proposal. However, according to the government's or the HKCSS statistics, a lot of women are part of the working poor, and yet they are not receiving any benefits under the government's proposal. LIFA is a kind of social allowance. However, it has become, in effect, a kind of benefit to the employer. The government is saying that if you work more, you can benefit more. And yet, housewives who are working 24 hours a day don't get any benefits. And this just shows that the government is not thinking from the family carers' perspectives. A lot of women really want to work, but they have no choice because they cannot enjoy childcare or caring services. The restriction on working hours effectively means that women cannot benefit, and you are forcing a lot of women to be economically dependent, and as such, a lot of women can only take up part-time work in the future. A lot of women are not enjoying labor benefits, and if they cannot meet the working hours benefit, you are saying that if you're not qualified for LEFA, you can still apply for WITS, but yet a lot of women are not qualified for WITS because they exceed the lower requirements, and these people are excluded from all sorts of benefit schemes, and as such, we think that LEFA should not be linked with working hours. A lot of people in the society are saying that we're working far too long. The working hours are far too long. They have no time to rest. They have no time for their families, and yet the government is encouraging people to work for 208 hours or even more. This is really ironic. Secretary, are you listening to what we are saying? We think the government should monitor LEFA every year and conduct and carry out reviews. Otherwise, the scheme will effectively become a subsidy scheme for employers. Ms. Chung Po Lai, Cleaners Union. When I first heard about LEFA from the government, I was very happy because the government is doing something to help the poor. However, later on, we were really disappointed because the scheme could not help the cleaners. They could not help the cleaners in poverty. The government does not understand the problems with the outsourcing mechanism. The scheme is in vain for most of us. The government is not thinking from the workers' standpoint. Cleaners have to work very long hours, and with the lack of benefits under the outsourcing program, workers do not receive pay rises, and cleaners aren't even getting paid on rest days because the employers want to save money. And as such, cleaners are living very difficult livelihoods. And with inflation, I don't know how to describe their situation. A lot of workers who are 50 or 60 years old still have to work multiple jobs in order to feed their families. And the requirements of LEFA are very strict, and they cannot really help the low-income families. And the government has a very narrow definition of families, and most elderly cleaners live alone, and their family members are often living outside, and their spouses are at the twilight of their lives. The government is always saying that even if you're not eligible for LIFA, you can still apply for WITS. However, WITS has assets requirements, and aged cleaners have to work around the clock, and they find it very hard to save up, and it's very hard for them to be self-reliant. And even with the introduction of LIFA, these people are still under poverty. Mr. Liu Manking from the Salvation Army. I'm sure the Secretary has heard all our views. Having heard all the comments, the restriction of 208 hours is obviously way too high. We have interviewed families who are under CSSA earlier this year, and over 80% welcome the idea of LIFA, and they are looking forward to the launch of the scheme. How do we speed up the program? And even the efficiency unit might not be able to help. A lot of residents who can, if they are to be eligible for CCF, they must not be receiving CSSA, and yet they might face pressure of increasing rents, and they're looking forward to the scheme. If you have read the news, you might be aware that we have to wait for the setting up of computer systems, etc. Secretary, do you have any solutions to speed up the process? And on the working hours, if you insist on 208 hours, some residents, some mothers, their husbands might be working outside. If some mothers decide to find part-time employment, as you understand that rent is going up all the time, and the mothers might just want to earn a little bit more for their family. Will you allow the mothers to get part-time work, even though their husbands are working full-time? And this might really help a lot of residents. As I was waiting outside just a while ago, has the Secretary heard about paid holiday or paid leave? I'm not sure how many days of paid leave do you have, or can you take your paid leave anytime, just like our Chief Executive? A lot of workers might have only 7 to 10 days of leave, and they have to apply to their boss. I'm very concerned if you say that paid leave can replace holidays. And as you know, a lot of families have to wait for 5 years or above for PRH. How can you help singletons? A lot of residents are looking forward to the scheme, but without rent control, the allowance might not actually help a lot of residents. Let's give the Secretary 7 minutes to respond. We have heard 21 deputations and friends. I'd like to thank all of you. In the first round, in this round, I have several new points to make, and I would like to reinforce certain points already mentioned. First, for the working hour requirements of 208 hours, the standard requirement is 144 hours. And for the 208-hour requirement, a lot of workers work very long hours in Hong Kong, like, for example, security guards. We estimate that over 1/3 of the workers work more than 208 hours. For workers who work very long hours, they cannot change their situation. We're not talking about standard working hours. And we're not talking about work-life balance. But from realistically speaking, how can we help workers who are working very long hours already? And as such, we are giving them an extra $400. But the basic requirement remains at 144 hours. For singletons, they can receive $1,000 as long as they work for 72 hours, and they can receive more if they work 144 hours. The 208 hours is just for the upper batch of workers. Our requirements are very relaxed, and the child allowance requirement is unchanged for all kinds of workers. We are very lax, generally speaking, and the asset management, the asset cap is the same as PRH. So the overall design of the scheme was drawn up according to realistic circumstances. Why aren't we including singletons? We have ample grounds. We want the scheme to be linked with employment, and we want to encourage employment rather than encouraging people to rely on welfare or CSSA. And this is encouraging in nature. And we want to tackle intergenerational poverty. And even with CSSA, they find it very hard to make ends meet. And for each child, the families will be eligible for $800. Mr. Rashad's case is very commonplace. If you have one child, you get $800. If you have 5 children, you have $4,000. So if you're working, then at least you will have $4,600 a month, and this is very helpful for many families. For casual workers or part-time workers, we will try to be lax, and you can declare your working hours, and this is our entire thinking. This is not just a PR initiative. We are really sincere, and we really hope to help people in need. But the point is, we are trying to help people who have needs. For under normal circumstances, working 144 hours is very easy. It's very normal. We have discussed with labor unions, and they agree that such requirements are reasonable. For those who earn $30 an hour, it's very easy for them to make $6,000 or $7,000 a month, and individuals can apply for WITS. We have heard a lot of opinion with regards to WITS, and many people want to retain the scheme, and that's what we did exactly. We retained the scheme. If you have family members on WITS, even as long as their total income do not go over the cap, they can continue to apply for WITS. However, for LIFA, we cannot offer double benefits. We will adopt the biggest common denominator. For the 7-year residency requirement, the scheme has no relationship whatsoever to the residency requirement. Even for people who just arrived in Hong Kong, they can find a job on day one and still be eligible. Some people are concerned with the launch date of the scheme, but it really depends on when we can submit our proposal to the FC for approval. Having heard all your comments, we will be on full speed working out all the details. Hopefully we can go to the FC in July. As you know, we are facing flabbergasting right now, and our schedule might be affected. Which institution or department will be responsible before the efficiency unit was involved? Right now, we will delegate the responsibility to a department which has the experience, and we will not go to the EU again. We will assign it to a department with the right experience. And that said, the efficiency unit still has a role to play. And going forward, we are looking at a one-stop solution. And we hope to achieve to facilitate applications under one roof, and the EU will look at the overall planning. And this is what I have to report. Anything new on the holiday? On the issue of paid holiday, if the worker has paid holiday, for example, the 1st of May or Lunar New Year, if the worker cannot meet the requirement because of the public holidays, if it is paid holiday, we're talking about if a worker cannot meet the requirement because of the presence of public holidays, we will incorporate we will include the working holidays. We will work out the details. Some deputations are absent today.
I just want to know whether the deputations would like to speak again. Show of hands, please. 8. Who else? I draw a line there. I don't know whether other members of the panel would or the committee would like to speak. Well, I think I can give 20 minutes. Have you taken down all the names? Those 8, please raise your hands. Hands steady, please. I have to take down your name first.
我再講次陣間發言嘅都請大家為
Please speak to the question of LIFA. 9個係嘛？呢度4個啦，呢邊呢3個有冇可唔可以對唔住，真係要就 Sorry, on my left. Once again, please raise your hands. Altogether 8. Each will be given 2 minutes on LIFA. Once again, Ms. Hong. Thank you, Chairman. I thank Mr. Chang for listening to us very carefully. I just want to make a quick response. I think our group understands the difference between 188 hours and 144 hours and 208 hours, but for the chronically ill or the PWDs or the carers, they will not be able to meet this 144 hours threshold. Can that be adjusted? The test is based on the family as a whole. And in fact, the pressure is put on one person in the family. There may be several working members in a family. everyone may be just working part-time, and the whole family added together may be able to reach 144 hours, but or 208 hours. Now, if you want to encourage people to stand on their own feet, if you just calculate the working hours of a single family member, is it appropriate? Whether one is a PWD or chronically ill, or an able-bodied person, will you consider all the working hours of the family? Ms. Chan. I think the point is related to low-income families. An elderly Madam Yu smeared Mr. Lee, cheeking. He was criticized for opposing a universal retirement protection. Universal retirement protection will only increase government deficits. No country has successfully implemented universal retirement protection. She also used vulgar language. Now, Ms. Chan, if you don't speak to the question, I'll have to stop you. You have already done so before. You are not speaking to the question.
人唔可以做滴埋心水，坐喺屋企，個個咧就唔使嘅，政府養得㗎啦。因為西方嘅國家嘅個觀念教下一代咧，就即係咧出世之後咧就佢哋以後唔使養父母啊？點解啊？因為做國家會養佢哋啊，口口聲聲就父母就有父母有政府養㗎啦，佢哋根本就唔使負責任。咁呢個根本就係違反我哋中國人去孝順。孝順父母係一個品德嚟㗎嘛，係咪？佢父母冇人呢啲係畜生不如嘅。咁點解我唔明白點解咧？余婆婆佢為一己之私，點解可以咁講啦？係咪話叫人
Well, I really don't understand why she said so. Please do not speak on individual cases. We don't know who is who. It is about universal retirement protection. It is about low-income families. A member who is present supports this. He can talk to me on this. I think universal retirement protection is not suitable for Hong Kong. I've already allowed you. I just counted. Is this related? Okay, next speaker. Well, I understand Mr. Cheng's goodwill to a certain extent, but when the low-income families see the thresholds of 144 hours and 208 hours, they will try to aim at 208 hours in order to get a higher allowance. Now, it's right to encourage people to work more. Now, if you just set the threshold at 144 hours, and your 208 hours threshold is for those who work extra long hours. But you just encourage people to work longer hours and give up their family time. I don't know whether that's your intention. Why don't you just set the line at 144 hours, and then the basic allowance is $1,000. That's the best. Then the families don't need to have the expectation that they can get a few $100s more by working 208 hours. That will not be good for the family. As for the income test, it's based on the total family income. If more than one member is working, and you see whether the income is above the poverty line or not. If you calculate family income in total, why can't you calculate working hours in total for the family as a whole? I find your standard not consistent. I hope Mr. Cheung can address this point. As for single-parent families, they have a lower threshold in terms of working hours. As for those who care for SEN children, who cares for the elderly, who care for the elderly, would they be given the same treatment? Yes, Mr. Yu. I want to ask the Policy Secretary, if you want to encourage people to work, then why can't you encourage singletons or one-person families to work? It seems that the government is discriminating against one-person households. And now we help the workers to fill in their forms for WITS. The assets, their incomes are calculated on family basis, but why not working hours? Why is there such an inconsistency? As for working hours, many workers want to work more, but their employers don't allow them. If they want to ask for one more day, if they want to ask, if they ask for working for one more days, they're just dismissed by their bosses. It's not that they don't want to work more; it's that there is no more work for them. Concerning WITS. Is it related to LIFA? I know that there will be a review on WITS. Will the review of WTIS be related to LIFA? Now you say you are not going to cancel that, but you are going to conduct a review. And WITS is similar to LIFA. It's also calculated according to. There is also an income test and an asset test, and also a working hour threshold. So you really need to explain to us how are they, whether the two are related or not. Yes, Madam Kwok. There's a rumor that the OALA, the $2,000 of OALA will be counted as partly as the family income. $1,000 of the $2,000 received will be counted as family income. I don't know whether that's true or not. Now we live in North New Territories. We work in the urban area, and we don't have altogether. We don't have 208 hours per month. Sometimes we work 11 hours or 12 hours a day, and sometimes we just work 2 to 3 hours per day, or 3 or 4 hours per day. So I just hope that you can reduce the threshold for LIFA to just 72 hours instead of 144. Mrs. Chen Chi-Kit. The Secretary explained why the threshold cannot be reduced to 208 hours. He said that that would reduce productivity of our labor force. But if the families are allowed to have their working hours counted on a family basis instead of on an individual basis, then that will be more consistent, and that will enable the parents to have more time to spend with their children. Working hours should be counted in total for the family. It will not reduce productivity. If it is 208 hours by 2 people, then it's still 208 hours. As for women, well, if the mother can work, then she can maintain contact with the community, and that can also help her in terms of caring. It will also enable her to care for the family if she just work part-time in the community. In Shek Wu Hoi, there are women who work long hours, and no one and their children are cared for by their relatives if they are lucky. But if they are not lucky, they will have to pay for child caring. So part of their salaries goes to child care. If there is no subsidy, then they will have a hard life. Mr. Rasad, I support the scheme. In Kwai Chung, there are ethnic minorities who are longing for the implementation of this scheme. As said by the Policy Secretary, the ethnic minorities have bigger families. If they don't have enough money, they can apply for low-income CSSA. They are being stigmatized. This scheme is able to encourage them to work more. As for children receiving education, they will also get an allowance. I hope the allowance can be given to say if their children are studying overseas because they are unable to get a place in the schools in Hong Kong, will the subsidy be given as well? Ethnic minorities are stigmatized. They are hardworking. They have low income. They still work. They want to stand on their own feet. Mr. Chang, you said the scheme is to help encourage people to work. Women cares for the family to enable other family members to go out to work. You don't give support to the homemakers, and you're in fact penalizing them. And they work for the family, but their efforts are not recognized. You don't give any subsidy to the homemakers. I don't know why Mr. Chang thinks that a single mother can work for 12 hours and still she's able to work for 12 hours. And in fact, how many jobs are available to women when they have to care for their children? And how many women who care for children can accumulate 72 hours per month? If you want to link the threshold to working hours, then the carers and single mothers should be given a lower threshold. Otherwise, it will be unfair. And there is also the issue of increase in casual jobs and reduction in permanent jobs. In a family, 4 or 5 people, or 3 or 4 people may be working casual jobs because employers don't want to give them a continuous contract. They don't want to fall under the 418 rule. It's not the worker's choice. The Secretary is not able to explain with good reasons why a single-person household is not eligible. The elderly workers are a case in point. Their spouses might have passed away, their children might have already left them, so why are they excluded? Mr. Liu. Now we heard the threshold, 144. Between 144 hours and 208 hours, there's a difference of $400. I don't know what is the cost of a meal for the Policy Secretary, but for a low-income person, $400 means a lot. It is a very only for those who have high pay will get $400 per day. Well, of course, we welcome the increase, but we hope that you can lower the threshold. It's not about, I heard another number, which is 192, not 208. Would it be better if it is 292, if you're considering that? It's also very difficult to reach 192 hours. Now, apart from going to the public hearings, will you also contact other groups and try to understand the working hours of the low-income families? Now, if they work 192 hours, look at their faces. They work really hard. They're all very tired if they work 192 hours. And say, if one work for A restaurant today and work for B restaurant tomorrow, how are you going to count that, the number of hours? And also, it's necessary to calculate the number of hours on a family basis instead on an individual basis, because you also calculate income on a family basis. As for assets, if one lives with the in-laws, will you just consider the assets and income of the incomes of the core family? Mr. Chang. Yes, I think the views for the deputations, I will not mention their names individually. My apologies. Let me explain. We have no discrimination against single person households. Now, the starting point of LIFA is the children. We want to do away with cross-generation poverty. The Oxfam proposed $800 to each child. There was no basic allowance or $1,000 or $600 or $1,000. In fact, the aim is to help families with children to remove cross-generation poverty. Now, if a parent works, then the parent should be encouraged to work. Therefore, we introduced a basic allowance $600 and also $100. We encourage people to work more to get more. Hong Kong people have long working hours. If they work long working hours, but they are not able to increase their income to bring about a change, shouldn't we help them? So our idea is to give $800 to each child, no matter how long the working hour is. Apart from those in the marginal case, 50% or 60%, we give half of the allowance. We give $800 to each child.
Single person households, if they are able-bodied, for them to find a full-time work, they can easily earn $6,000 to $7,000. And they can also apply for the transportation allowance, $7,900, not counting the MPF contribution, which is not included, and you already have $600 there. With a two-track system, 26,000 people will be eligible to apply as single individuals. 70,000 odd, there's still many people who would still be eligible to the work incentive travel allowance scheme. So it's like $600 if you work for 144 hours. Mr. Yi made a very good point. That is the transportation allowance, and also how does it relate to LIFA. We have yet to launch the LIFA scheme. We still have time. So I think we need to be pragmatic. We shouldn't touch the transport allowance scheme. And we've undertaken that in October there will be a comprehensive review about the effectiveness of the scheme. So in October we will start the review on the transport allowance, by which time LIFA is yet to be launched. So there's still some leeway there. But we don't want too much confusion at this stage. We need to, work on the computer process for LIFA. So I think we should allow for some time. But anyway, we will be conducting a comprehensive review on the transport allowance incentive scheme. Ms. Kwok asked why the old age living allowance should be taken out from the old age allowance. I think we're very careful. The Public Commission has discussed this very carefully and decided on this approach. We all know that the old age allowance, for those I think for those over the 65, if you live in, if you're between 65 to 69, you're eligible to old age allowance. If you're 70, then there is no means test, you're automatically eligible. This is a gesture of our respect for senior citizens, so we will not be touching that. But the old age living allowance is living allowance, and there's a means test. So the $2,285 will, from that will deduct 1,800, and we end up with 1,000 odd dollars, and that will count as part of the household income. We need to make the deduction because the old allowance will not count because it's a gesture of for the senior citizens. But always living allowance is a living allowance, so that part will need to be taken out. Regarding the aggregation of the working hours, of course, we were saying just now that we have yet to work out the full details of the scheme. There's still some leeway for us to listen to views. But I'd like to explain why it's difficult to aggregate the total number of working hours. We have to consider the impact of this scheme on the labor market. We don't know. We don't want to distort the labor market. If we aggregate the working hours of different household members, if you add up the total working hours of all the household members for you to meet the threshold. Some people will say now that there is this allowance and the child is entitled to the $800 allowance for a four-person household. If they successfully work for 208 hours, whether they work for the catering and security industry, they get $1,000. The two children, if there are two children, they'll get $800 each, so they'll get $2,600 per month. And they may start to ponder whether or not they should work shorter hours, in which case the labor market will become more tight. So we have a problem here. This scheme is not pegged to the statutory minimum wage scheme. We're not trying to resolve the problem of work-life balance. That is being taken care of by a different committee. We're being pragmatic. That is, given the current labor market, we want to see how we can help the working poor and help them attain a better living standard. I think we're finished with the deputations and the Secretary's response. But you're welcome to stay on if you like to listen to members' questions. Mr. Chiming, Chen Chi-kun, Leung Kok-hong, Lee Chuk-yen, Fernando Zhang, and myself. And I need to reserve 5 minutes, so we have half an hour. So shall we say 5 minutes each for each member? So I'll be very strict, all right? Each member will have 5 minutes. Mr. Chiming. First of all, I'd like to thank all the deputations for expressing their views. We've had different opinion. I'll certainly go back to my party caucus to consider your views. One basic message I've heard from among the deputation that 208 hours is too harsh a threshold. So, Mr. Secretary, how did you arrive at this figure of 208 hours? Mr. Secretary, well, the basis is that the Standard Working Hour Committee has made an analysis. We found out that many of the rank and file jobs, especially jobs requiring long working hours like the security industry, catering, those working in hostels, 28 hours is quite common, especially for those working in security guards that work for 60 hours a week, 10 hours per day. We're not encouraging people to work long hours. We don't want to launch a scheme to encourage long working hours. But we've taken, in stock the current situation. We have 205,000 households with a benefit, 710,000 people benefit. 1/3 of these households were the applicant, that is the sole breadwinner. 1/3 of them can work for 208 hours. The others, 144 is the basic threshold. It's on that basis, and having taken into consideration the situation in the labor market and the fact that many industries, for many industries, people can easily work for more than 208 hours. So we need to be pragmatic. So given this background, we're saying that, well, they're still not making enough, so well, perhaps you should give them an allowance. Well, I've tried to do my sum. You are 365 days in a year minus 52, Sundays, 12 labor holidays, and 7 days of annual leave. The total number of working hours is 294 per year. That's 24 and a half days per month. Divided by 208, you're talking about 8.5 hours per day. So I don't quite understand why you think it's very long. I don't understand. Mr. Secretary already explained that in many industries, people work longer hours than that. So I think this threshold is not too unreasonable. Of course, I've heard many different views about the working hours of different industries. Any response, Secretary? Yes. Yes. Mr. Chen Chi-kun, 8.5 hours a day and 6 days a week, is that too long? If you ask the workers, many workers want to work for such long hours. They could be weak, physically weak, they may need to take care of their family members, or they may want to work but they cannot find enough work. So I have several suggestions for you, Secretary. You said that in July, if the FC will not endorse the leaver, funding for the leaver scheme, then you will not be able to launch the scheme early next year. I'd like to say this to you, Mr. Secretary. Please tell Paul Chan to withdraw the funding for the advanced work for the Northeast NT. Most of the members of the Pandemic Camp will obstruct him. If you really want to help the poor, please, for this project for which approval from the Town Planning Board is yet to come, please withdraw this funding application for the NENT development project. Secondly, regarding the working hours, 144 and 208, I have discussed this with the Secretary many times. At the recent occasion, the Secretary said that 144 is the basic, and if you like, we will scrap the 208 threshold. Everybody collects $600, then nobody would need to quarrel over this or not. I don't know whether the Secretary means it seriously or not. Later on, Mr. Secretary explained that 208 hours is not really an incentive to encourage people to work. But rather, if you work for more than 64 hours, you still can't make ends meet, then we'll give you an allowance. But you require the person to work 208 hours per week, he wouldn't have very much of family life left. But the objective fact is that if the person works for 144 hours, he will try to, aim at working 208 hours. I think the best solution is to give an allowance of $1,000 if people work 144 hours, and for those who don't work for those who have worked for less than 104 hours, you pay them on a pro rata basis. And whether or not you give them something extra if they exceed 208 hours, that's something else we can discuss. The policy intent is to tackle intergeneration poverty. But it doesn't mean that if you have no children, you cannot apply for a leaver. You said that your aim is to encourage employment. You want to help children, but not all households have children. You say that you want to tackle intergeneration poverty, so you propose $800 per child. But the reality is, you did many calculations. You say one person can make that number of hours. But the fact is that people who work casual hours simply don't have so many hours of work that they can do, and that's the reality. I've heard Mr. Chen very clearly, and we'll certainly analyze the points suggested by Mr. Chen. Leung Kok Hong. Lee Chia-yen. Thank you. Mr. Secretary, you explained the rationale for the 208 hours. I don't think there is any basis for that. 1/3 of the people work for more than 28 hours. So what? Does that mean that for the other two, for the remaining 2/3, they will not collect the allowance which require them to work for 208 hours? You want to reward people who work for longer hours? If you really want to encourage them, why don't you enact legislation to require overtime pay? That is, the employer must pay the workers if the workers have to work overtime, and the government should give a subsidy for the low-income earners. If you come up with a 208 threshold, you are causing trouble for yourself. The administrative costs will go up, and you're making it very inconvenient for the applicant. There are two administrative costs. Administrative costs on your part, your staff would work on the scheme, and the applicant will also find it very difficult. That is, I may work for more than 28 hours this month, I will work for a few hours next month, and the number varies every month. So what's the point? So why don't you adopt a single line or threshold? So if we think that there should be a standard working hour, we set the threshold at the number of standard hours, and it shouldn't be 208. 208 is too high. If the standard working hours for the government is 44, that's standard working hours for civil servants. And the FTE also said that it should be 44 hours. So why don't you draw a line there and call this the standard working hours threshold? And then you're going to afford to be more lenient because you're trying to help. So just have a single threshold, all right? And do away with all the, complications. Secretary said that you have heard our views. I want the deputations to know that is for the next step, when will the administration give us an official response? Many points have been raised just now. We want you to give us, a final response. I hope that in the end you will not continue to stand in a position despite what you've heard. So, Mr. Secretary, when will you come back to us? I don't want you to go to the Poverty Commission and the FC, and then we would object at the FC meeting. We would like to have a clear-cut reply before that. So what is the timetable you have in mind? Chairman, we hope that before the summer recess, we can go to the FC in July. There are two meetings scheduled, 4th and 11th of July. We hope that there won't be any more FC meetings after that. I hope that the FC can work more smoothly. If we cannot go to the FC in July, and it will seriously delay the timetable. I'm not talking about the FC. I know that there are two meetings scheduled for July for the FC, but earlier. I hope that you've heard all the views today. Will you fine-tune your policies? If so, you have to come back and discuss it with us again before you go to the FC on the 4th of July FC meeting. You stand a better chance of getting our support. You've heard the deputations, and by the 4th and 11th of July, it'll be easier for us to give you support. So, have you heard all the views? Can you give us a reply within a month saying that this is your position after you've heard all the views, and then you can discuss it at the Poverty Commission before you go to the FC on July 4th. I don't want you to, not able to, give us your final decision. Or before you go to the FC, you have not yet worked out the final details. So could you, come back to us about your views? Yes, certainly before the FC meeting, we'll come back to you again to tell you what is the consideration of the administration. This is something that is also the concern of the welfare panel. The next time you come back, I hope you have already taken on board the views expressed today, be it the issue of singleton persons, single-parent families, a 208-hour threshold. You've heard all our views. Mr. Leung Kok-hong. Well, it's all very simple, really. Instead of saying that you're helping the low-income households, and we say that there is a shortage of labor. There's a shortage of labor. The employers are willing to pay high wages, and the employers are chopping up the jobs in order to bypass the need to pay the employees the benefits. Many people, after they work for more than 144 hours, it's difficult for them to make it to 28 hours, because even if they want to work, they wouldn't be able to find that much work. Some people already working 28 hours, those in the catering industry, they wouldn't be low income, won't come under the low income category if they work such long hours. In other words, the overall income will not be too low. So my point is very simple. For catering, retail, those working in the service industry, including cleansing staff and security guards, which are indispensable for Hong Kong. We can't do without these people. We need these people to do the fundamental work, otherwise Hong Kong will not function. So should Hong Kong not be responsible for their welfare? And who is going to be responsible? The rich people, obviously. Because the rich people are making so much money. If there's nobody cleaning the toilets or sweeping the floors, cleaning up the air conditioning, the ducts, and people get ill. So the question is, I think the best solution is that you ask the healthiest people, you charge them a progressive profits tax. If they earn more than $1 million, you charge them an extra 1% of tax. Use the proceeds to subsidize the small employers, because they can't afford to pay high wages. And if they were asked to pay high wages, the business will not survive. Why don't you ask the wealthiest people to subsidize those who are poor? We have a temporary shortage of labor in Hong Kong, but the workers are all working hard for the prosperity of Hong Kong. And if they're encountering difficulties, why are you being so mean to them? I think my proposal will solve the problem. You make a projection, you find out how many people you need to take care of, and then you will, tax the wealthiest. If you want to formulate a policy, you have to consider to whom you get the money. Don't tell us that the government has a limited budget. Eventually, I don't believe that the low-income workers, if they were to stop working for a day, Hong Kong wouldn't survive. If nobody is selling hamburgers in McDonald's, nobody is doing cleansing work, how can Hong Kong function? So what you're doing now is helping the wealthy to resolve problems which the market cannot resolve. It's because you have unscrupulous and conscientious employers, for those who cannot. So your policy objective should be to narrow the poverty gap, and I think you should tackle the problem through the taxation system. As in the case of insolvency claims, when there are wages in arrear, you ask all registered businesses to pay a levy, and then the compensation is paid out from that fund. I think this is how you should resolve this problem.
Low-income members are due to market situations, for example, expensive rent or high expenses on the part of workers. Chairman, can you ask him to consider these points? Any response from the Secretary? Secretary, please. I've heard Mr. Leung's personal opinion. Fernando Chang. LIFA, the idea of LIFA came from a report of the Commission of Poverty. After a transfer of welfare, a lot of families are still under poverty. A large majority of these families, around 100,000 families, are on CSSA. And the remaining families have working family members, and most of them have full-time jobs. And yet, these families are still under poverty. Many of these families have children or people who require caring, economically inactive family members. These families have working family members, members who have full-time work, and the idea of LIFA is to subsidize these families. How do we draw up such allowance? How do we draw the line in terms of members who have worked hard? You said the requirement, the threshold of 208 hours was drawn up according to actual circumstances. However, if you look at other countries or other OECD countries, they are talking about 147 hours, and for Hong Kong it's 208 hours. For Australia it's 144 hours. For UK 138 hours. For Netherlands 115 hours. And right now Hong Kong is at 208 hours. Frankie Yik said 8 hours a day is not a lot. But in actuality, if you deduct paid leave, the threshold is still very high. Why can't you lower the threshold? Some of these families might have members who require caring. Apart from children, they might have members with disabilities, children with special learning needs, chronically ill, elderly members. These families face a lot of difficulties. You should lower the threshold of working hours. And second, for families with special needs, you should give them a special grants because they have a lot of expenses. According to a study, PWDs have a monthly expense of about $2,500. Please give the Secretary some time to respond. We have been talking about these things for so long, and yet nothing has been done. Can you reconsider the working hours threshold? And can you consider a special grant for members with special needs? Chairman, I'm here today to listen to the comments. We'll go back to a drawing board and I will discuss with my team what can be done. We will think about all the opinions and comments raised by the deputations and members today, and we will certainly come back and report on our progress and our thoughts. Chairman, LIFA would be affected by minimum wage. If minimum wage is raised in the future, the number of poor families will reduce. Minimum wage should be reviewed not every 2 years, but every year at the very minimum. I hope the Secretary can consider reviewing minimum wage as well. This is a seesaw effect. If we have higher minimum wage, we will have less families who require assistance. Do employers have to be responsible of paying reasonable wages, or should we use public money to subsidize these families? I hope the government can raise the minimum wage every year at the very least. Secretary, I want to clarify one point. I don't agree with your view that the scheme is to tackle intergenerational poverty. When Oxfam submitted a report for the first time, myself and many members didn't agree with Oxfam's view of only tackling intergenerational poverty. We also have to look at the elderly and the children. During the previous term, LegCo, during the previous 2 terms, we have started mentioning tackling intergenerational poverty. That means 6 years ago we have already mentioned the need for a special allowance for the working poor. It has been mentioned in this panel, and later on Oxfam came up with a report to tackle intergenerational poverty for families with children, and we didn't agree because these families should include those with elderly people or PWDs. If you can remember, I've always said that you are discriminating against age. Why are you not giving allowance to the elderly? You are always saying that you have to study the feasibility. For elderly people, we have fruit money and non-fruit money, and the non-fruit money is considered part of the income. If the elderly allowance is considered part of the family income, and yet these elderly might still be under the poverty line, and why are you not giving them the allowance? This is very clear age discrimination. You should tackle elderly poverty and not just intergenerational poverty. This is age discrimination. This is very obvious. I don't expect an answer from you, but this is very clearly age discrimination against the elderly. The Commission on Poverty, according to a report from the POC, you have told us that many poor families have elderly people and PWDs. This is discrimination. You are just helping children. If you are helping the children, why aren't you helping people from the other categories? This has been said by on your own reports. I cannot accept this proposal, this kind of discrimination. Secretary, according to your set of values and figures, you're only helping housewives. And housewives actually have a job, even though most people don't consider it a job. There was a video this past Mother's Day. Housewives have to work around the clock, and they have a 24-hour job, and no one really wants this kind of job. Housewives are very busy, and life is very hard for them. This is probably out of your values. And finally, I want to talk about working hours. I won't repeat on the 208 hours. The working hours cannot be controlled by employees, but it depends on how many hours your boss would give you. Many people want to work more, but they don't have a choice. They are underemployed. How do we prove that the workers are willing to work more, but they are not receiving enough work from their bosses? How do we prove that? That's my third point. I hope the Secretary, especially the first point, leave does not come from poor children. you are opting to only tackle intergenerational poverty, but you're ignoring PWDs and the elderly. I don't need an answer, but please go back and think about it. We still have 5 minutes. Any follow-up from Mr. Fernando Chang? If not, I'd like to thank Mr. Chang, the deputations, and the administration. The Secretary promised to come back to us again in the next meeting. We might have a joint meeting with the welfare panel, and the Secretary will report on the progress. We have one more item on the agenda. Others can stay if you want to. We will discuss our discussion items for June and July. We will talk about the Community Care Fund in June, and we will handle inquiries and complaints on the CCF. If not, in June, we will talk about the Community Care Fund. In July, we will talk about the issue of poverty for new immigrants, especially the requirement, the 7-year residency requirement. We don't have an agenda for July yet. If Mr. Fernando Chang doesn't mind, we won't talk about it today. We will talk about the agenda for October during the next meeting. If we have no other comments, I'd like to